welcome to our first of many Captain Chats, a continuation of what we used to do on Zoom during our pandemic days, but now we get to be back in person and hearing and listening from professionals, alumni, pilots, aerospace professionals that have been in the industry for a long time. And Captain Dan Petrovich right here has a ton of experience to share with us. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Dan Petrovich, for a retired United Airlines Captain. I was there 37 years. I learned to fly down at Opa Locka and basically have a huge aviation family, much like yours, Eddie.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I've already know a little bit of your story, but I'm going to be really happy to dive into it. Before we do that, of course, just to introduce who we are, for those of you that are new or watching us online or listening to us, I guess, if we're in a podcast. We are Wayman Aviation Academy, now known as Wayman College of Aeronautics, here based out of North Perry Airport in South Florida, just between Fort Lauderdale and Miami. And we teach students how to fly. So who here is learning how to fly? Excellent. It's got a room full of student pilots here. The format for InSight Aviation and the Captain Chats is really how these pilots came to be where they are and what advice they have for aspiring aviators. So please think about those questions. We're going to do maybe a 20, 30-minute interview and then really open it up to questions and answers, which I think is where it gets really, really interesting. Okay? So I guess let's start from the beginning. How did you get interested in aviation?
Well, I grew up down here in my very early years living in Carroll City, and we'd see the planes fly over at Opa Locka all the time. My dad was actually in air conditioning and refrigeration as a young man, and then had a little bit of an accident and won a little bit of money in a lawsuit, quit his job and learned how to fly. Oh. 93 days from his first lesson to a commercial multi. 93 days? 93 days.
That's incredibly impressive. I don't even know if it's even possible today.
He lived at the airport.
That's what it takes.
Did. Yeah. And so I would watch that, and then eventually, after a few years, he got hired with United Airlines in 1965 and retired in 96, September 96. He wanted me to be a doctor. He wanted my brother to be an attorney. Okay. Which was interesting, but neither one of us.
Didn't want you to go into aviation?
No. He says, go do something else. And so my brother's 4 years younger than I am. So I actually got a Navy scholarship to college, Navy ROTC scholarship, full-blown paid college and everything else for the United States Navy at University of Florida, which was really, really nice. But unfortunately, a little more than halfway through the first year, my dad ruptured 3 discs in his lower back and lost his FAA medical, couldn't fly anymore. And I started coming home every weekend. And that 1.5-day weekend turned into a 2-day weekend and a 3-day weekend, and it affected my grades and my performance at the ROTC unit. So the lieutenant commander called me on the carpet and asked me what was going on, and I explained it to him, and he told me, finish the semester, drop your scholarship, go home, take care of your family, because if you don't do it now, you'll never have the chance. I get chills about it because that was a really, really great thing to do. He didn't have to do that. So I got my old job back at Winn-Dixie. And I was bagging groceries for about 2 weeks, and then I became a stockman. And within a year, I was an assistant manager.
This is all in Carroll City?
No, now we had, in 1966, we moved to Chicago.
Oh.
Because Dad was based there. And in 73, we moved back.
Okay.
So now we're living in Plantation. So I was working at Winn-Dixie, and Dad gets his medical back. What are you going to do? Well, I'm going to go back up to University of Florida, go over, join the unit. The lieutenant commander told me I could, and they'd work on getting my scholarship back. So he says, you really want to be a pilot? Well, check out some flight schools. So I did. I took 3 lessons. The gentleman who owned the flight school down here at Opa Locka, a place called Terce Air, a long time ago, Don Chalmers. You probably heard his name around.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. And Mr. Chalmers offered me a job at a flight school, pumping gas in the airplanes, cleaning windshields, moving things around.
How old are you at this point?
I was at 20.
Okay, great. 20.
And so I work in the line, and that really gave me an opportunity to be at the airport every day. Then as that rolled on, I really found that I really liked it. So I gave the job up at Winn-Dixie. I gave my notice. I went to work pumping gas. And 6 months later, I had a private multi commercial multi, instrument. And I took my commercial, single, and multi and instrument check ride all on the same day.
Wow.
6 months.
It's an intense day.
It was. It was a lot of fun, though. And then I flew corporate for a number of years, and I did a lot of flight instructing. 2 months after I got my tickets, I got my first CFI.
Well, before we run too far forward, because a lot of our students are in initial preliminary, we have Junior Air Force ROTC here, who's all working on the private pilot. And show of hands, who's working on their instruments? No?
What?
Commercial rating? Or multi? All right, some advanced ratings, but I think the majority of you are private. Is that right? Working on your private?
Yeah.
All right. So the initial level, private pilot, I think is the hardest. Everyone says instrument or CFI, but I think the private pilot is the hardest just because you don't even know what to expect. And I know there's some time back, but you've also been an examiner. Is that a tip for those initial private pilots?
Well, dive into it. One of the things, while I was an examiner, is during the briefing period when before we actually got into the oral portion of the exam, I would mention that you're going from a world that's flat. This is the world you live in now. You're going to a world that does this. And you got to fill up all this space. And what do you got? A whole bunch of new physics, math, meteorology that you never even thought about before other than watching it on TV or looking up at the sky. All these things are now filling up this big giant bubble over your head. It's the hardest one to get. You're right, Eddie. It is, because there's so much new stuff. Once you've built that good foundation, you can just build on that and build on that and build on that rapidly. And it'll be, as long as you have a good solid foundation with all of that stuff, you're going to do very well.
It's a good way to put it. A good foundation, a launching point to kind of pursue the rest of it. Those of you that are working towards your more advanced licenses, your flight instructor ratings, we'll also hear about primacy, which is that first thing you learn becomes a critical foundation for everything you learn going forward. So your first step after your licenses was a flight instructor.
A flight instructor went right into teaching.
All right. Loved it, hated it?
I loved it.
Great.
And I continued doing it through my entire career.
Excellent.
I did it for a number of years here. I ran the Bartow flying service for a couple of years. And even after I got with United, originally I was a ground school and simulator instructor. And eventually I was a training captain in a variety of different aircraft to the point where I was the training captain training the training captains. Yes. And then I became an examiner. And Wayman gave me my first opportunity to work as an examiner at this flight school here, and academy, college.
Yeah, making those moves.
Yeah.
As you made lots of moves. But that's a really interesting point, because that's something that I'm seeing more and more now as I expand outside of the school, is that the flight instructor rating is so important for the rest of your career, because a captain is always teaching, a first officer is always learning.
This is very true. Now, if you really look at what an airline doesn't hire first officers. They don't hire co-pilots. They are captains in waiting.
Yeah.
Right? And how do you get your training? You get it from your captain. The captain is supposed to be the mentor. All right? And that's one of the things that you look at, you question them. When I was a first officer, I always questioned, well, why would you do that? Why would we consider that? And they want your opinion too, because this crew resource management that you're going to be learning about if you haven't already started is one of the very vital tools that help make the entire operation successful, using all the tools that you have.
I find it really interesting because the more and more I learn about this, well, first of all, those of you that are doing the private pilot license, congratulations. The learning never stops.
yeah,
right.
These are do the changes.
Yeah, get used to reading. If you're not making flashcards or using your device, everyone learns in a different way. And so I find a part of the private, for those that are successful through private, is figuring out how you learn. Right? Especially because our junior ROTC guys, mostly high school students, haven't been through any higher education. A lot of our students are vocational, and that learning how to learn is something that's not in the brochure.
No, it's not. And learning how to learn is really important. But when you do become an instructor, what you'll find is that you are actually going to learn as an instructor, because you're going to go like, oh, wow, now I understand why that really is, because you have to teach it. And you have to get your student to understand it. They have to be able to walk away with that tool in that new tool in their toolbox when you teach that to them.
Now, I had the opportunity to visit the Bartow flying service when I went to Sun and Fun and got I wasn't allowed to land at Sun and Fun, so I had to land at Bartow, right? And I went in there, and I remember you telling me that you were kind of the jack of all trades there.
Yeah.
What is that role? Because the first job is the hardest to get. What was that role?
Well,
like?
my first job was as a flight instructor here at Opa Locka, and then I landed a job with a company that doesn't exist anymore. Some of you folks in the back may remember Levitt's Furniture.
Oh.
Mr. Levitt's had 86 stores nationwide. His father started it, the four brothers. Mr. Levitt's had his own King Air, and I got a job flying in the King Air, and eventually, over a 3-year period, got my ATP in the King Air, which was really nice. Mr. Levitt's to allow me to do that. But built my hours doing that.
Great plane.
Yeah, and then worked for another company up in Fort Lauderdale part-time and did some contract work with different companies. And then I got a job up at Bartow running the flying service up there. And that's
okay. So there are a few jobs there.
Yeah, it was 1983. The airline industry had pilots on furlough, thousands of pilots on furlough, and they all had the good corporate jobs. You couldn't get a Gulfstream job. You couldn't get any kind of good corporate job because all the furloughed airline pilots had it. But this job opened up at the flying service, and it was a Part 91 and a pilot service and a Part 61 flight school. So within a year, we became a 141 flight school on a 135 operation, and we went from managing 2 airplanes and having 2 airplanes in a flight school to 3 airplanes in a flight school and managing 6 corporate airplanes and crewing them and chartering them out in a year.
Well, just the paperwork of a 135 and a 141 is a lot.
That was a challenge.
Multiplying your fleets on both sides, that's quite an experience.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun, and I would get phone calls from owners that some of you may remember Cypress Gardens, the big winter ski, water ski place in Winter
Haven. Yes.
It's not where Legoland is. But Mr. Pope would call and say, "Hey, I got a business trip up in Jacksonville, and I'm going to be drinking for lunch. So would you ride up there in the right seat with me and let me fly, and then you fly it back?" Sure. Things like that, or just flight people, drop them off in the Keys, different charters, things like that, and then do some flight instruction. And occasionally, there's a big maintenance facility on the airport there, aircraft engineering.
Oh yes.
Bill Turley.
Yeah.
And Bill would call me and say, "Hey, Dan, I need you to take a Seneca over to Peter O'Knight in Tampa and bring back Mooney." When? About 10 minutes? Sure. Okay, go jump in an airplane. And off I'd go.
That's something I see more and more is just don't say no. Be ready, have a flight bag always in the back of your car.
Right.
And if an opportunity comes up, the answer by default is yes. Unless there's something overwhelmingly taking you away. But, if it's free flight time, do it. If it's paid, even better.
Well, that takes me to an interesting little side note. My aunt, my dad's sister, was a Delta flight attendant for many, many years.
All right.
And came around at Christmas of the year I'd been working and getting all my pilot certificates. And she got me a coffee mug.
Okay, nice.
And it said, "When my ship comes in, I'll probably be at the airport." So, yeah, being at the airport was important because that's where the job opportunities happen. Yeah, definitely.
Absolutely. So a lot of our Air Force ROTC students are from around the country. They're here with us for 8 weeks. And I suggest if the bug bites this summer, and I hope it does, and you're also successful with your pilots, go to your local airport. Find out who the CFIs are, the flight schools, the maintenance, and ask if they need an apprentice, an assistant, a fueler, a guy to wash the airplanes, someone to work the counter at night after school. That's how you just start meeting pilots, making those connections that lead to those first jobs. It's all about the network. And pilots, I think, are particularly generous about that. And maybe it comes back to that captains are always instructing. There's this kind of built-in mentorship system. But I find that the industry pilots in particular are just very generous with their time and their mentorship.
Yeah, it's a payback because people give you a break. Somewhere along the line, somebody gave you a break. So what do you want to do? You want to give someone else a break. You see that enthusiasm, that spirit within them that they want to do this. And this job is, I don't care if you're with the airlines or I flew corporate and charter and flight instruction, examiner, for lack of a better word, it doesn't suck.
That's a good way to put it. So I have the opportunity to attend the Latino Pilots Association. I guess the first conference last year, and Claudia Zapata, who's a United captain as well,
Right.
she's the president right now, and she gave that keynote, and she said this one line that I wrote down because I thought it was so important: that some debts are too big to be paid back. You have to pay them forward.
Yes.
And I just loved that idea. And I think that's what we're doing here every day by inviting everyone here, by the mentorship, by the organizations, is helping people come up the ladder. Because there's an easier way to make a living. I don't know. When you get there. But it's tough to get, up the ladder into a big airplane. And it's important to seek that mentorship. And there's so many organizations like the Latino Pilots Association, the 99s, OBAP, the Organization for Black Aerospace Professionals, to go out there and find mentorship. And even if they're not called mentors, if it's an uncle, a friend of somebody who is willing to have a phone call with you. I have those phone calls all the time. Like, hey, I'm doing this, interested in doing that, and these are friends that are living in Nevada or wherever. And I said, well, I can't help you with the direct schooling, but go to your local airport and find help and things like that. Okay, so we're just right now in those first jobs. What was the big break? How did you move into the airlines?
Into the airlines? Well, it was kind of a fluke, another fluke. I actually say that my life as I've gone through is much like, if you guys have seen the movie Forrest Gump, Forrest Gump had a lot of good luck. Well, right there. Yeah, kind of like Forrest Gump in real life. I had an opportunity to join the Air Force in late '83, early '84, and I had gotten married in early '83, right when I took the job at Bartow.
Oh, okay.
And my girlfriend for 6 years. Then we just had our 47th wedding anniversary.
Congratulations.
Yeah, so,
47.
yeah.
Big number.
Yeah, it is. She's still my girlfriend though, so
Good.
that's the good part.
Yeah.
So my bags are packed at the door in early March because I have to be off because I'm going to be 27 and a half in July, and I have to have my lieutenant's bars on by
Really?
27 and a half, or you can't be a pilot. And I had a guaranteed pilot slot,
Nice.
which was nice. Depending on how I finished in my class, it would depend on what equipment I would get, because you get to by how you finish performance-wise. And bags are packed at the door, and she says, I don't want to be a military wife.
Uh-oh.
Well, I'm still with her. I kind of gave up on the airline and corporate world at that time because everybody was still on furlough. We were still in the country was still in a recession. And so I kind of just whatever. And I got this, about as big as those pictures in the back of the room, a poster. In the bottom left corner was a bunch of gray clouds and an orangish kind of sunset sky, and there's a 727, if you know what that is. Yes, there you go. 3 motors in the back and a T-tail. What a beast. What an awesome airplane, man. I love flying it. Punching out of the clouds, and over on the bottom right side it said, go confidently in the direction of your dreams. Henry David Thoreau. So I framed it, I put it up in the bedroom at the foot of the bed on the wall, and my wife hated it. But I saw it every morning when I got up, and I saw it every night when I went to bed. And then all of a sudden in November, I get a call from United, which I had an application in with them.
Nice.
I kind of had to hurry because at times we had flight engineers, and my writtens had expired, so I had to run out and take my writtens again. And within 3 weeks, I had an interview, and 3 weeks after that, I was in new hire school and off with United. And unfortunately, we had a strike, which kind of delayed things a little bit, but eventually got back May of '85. Yeah,
Wow.
And I got hired January 29th.
You've got great timing.
And so basically, because all these new pilots wouldn't cross the picket line because there was a strike, we got fired. Went to court. We won our jobs back with the help of the pilots union, and I got back on the property in December of '85, and did a lot of union work over the years, and then eventually I got tapped on the shoulder by management, and so I went into management and did a bunch of that, and did a bunch of flight training, and I was the chief pilot in our Miami base, and ended up as a worldwide operational crisis manager for 6 years at our corporate headquarters fixing
Worldwide
everybody's
crisis
problems.
management. Yeah, worldwide crisis management.
Yeah.
That sounds like a job I would not want.
Well, I tore my pants. You got jeans? Yeah, go fly. Or somebody just died on the airplane.
Ooh.
Are you a doctor? No. Do you have a doctor on board that says he's dead? No. Well, then he just doesn't have any vital signs. We can't pronounce him deceased. So keep flying, and we'll have somebody meet the airplane.
Wow.
Or an engine failure out over the middle of the ocean. And I got 3 hours to fly on one engine.
I was doing engine out procedures today over at TNT, and I was like, my right leg is still sore. I imagine you've got rudder controls and things like that.
Yeah, there's some assistance there for us. Yeah.
Absolutely. So now, an entire career at United Airlines and all these different roles. How long were you there?
37 years.
37 years.
Yeah.
37 years. Massive impact, chief, and all these different offices. And I know you're now with the retired United Captains organization.
Yeah, I'm the president of Retired United Pilots Association now. My wife says I have a problem. I don't know how to say no. So.
It's very good at saying yes.
Well, see, saying yes.
And that's what got us here, right, to doing this interview. Really, I wanted to get the students to get to know you, before we open up to questions. And can you hear us in the back all right? Yeah? Good. We'll have a mic when it comes to the questions. So now you've come full circle, and I'm aware this is like your third retirement.
My third retirement. Yeah.
Third retirement. Yeah. And so after your first retirement, you became an examiner.
Actually, I started as an examiner 4 years before I retired
right.
from United. Mm-hmm. And you guys gave me the big break here.
Happy to have
Rosa,
you.
where is she? She hiding in the room anymore?
She was here.
She was here. She snuck out. But yeah, so that's who I first met with. Mm-hmm. You remember Joe Orzik, an examiner,
yeah.
who's also retired, former United pilot, who actually recommended me for the job because of the experience I had training new pilots at United. And because we also evaluated them, we gave them check rides at the same time as we were training them.
Sure.
But we'd also do ride-along check rides with a crew, like I just ride over to London.
Okay.
And then an hour and a half later, be in the airplane coming home.
So in-aircraft checks, simulator-based checks,
all kinds of
all
stuff.
checks all the time. But it's got to be a big difference working with, seasoned professionals who already have their ATPs or flying heavier metal, and then coming back to hopping into a 172 or I don't know if you guys have any 152s.
Yeah, I did a bunch of 152 check rides. Yeah.
Thank you. That's becoming the challenge right now, is finding people that are willing to not get into 152 but to put one on. And
it's the getting out that's the hard part.
It is. But I mean, that's got to be quite a jarring jump, working with professionals versus coming to working with 20-somethings that are just started their career. Why would you do that?
I love teaching and I love coaching.
Sure.
I coached probably close to 300 youth sports teams over the years.
Wow.
I was an umpire.
Yes, you remember that.
I did that too. But I coached boys and girls soccer, boys and girls basketball, flag football, tackle football, softball, and baseball, all the way up to the collegiate levels, where I put 30-some, almost 40 kids into college on scholarships playing baseball and softball.
Wow.
And it was a lot of fun. And so I went through professional coaching schools, and then I had the professional train-the-trainer schools at United, as they called them.
Sure.
And those schools were basically teach you how to adapt to each person individually. As I also did some counseling for other issues, death and grief issues, which also that plays into part in getting to know each person individually. So when I have a 17-year-old who it's their 17th birthday and they're getting their private pilot certificate,
sure,
and it's like, wow, and they're the first pilot in their family, or they're the fifth pilot in their family, or the 65-year-old
sure,
who has taken flying lessons 3 times over his life and had to quit for various reasons, him or her, and then eventually they get this opportunity to do this. To see the excitement on the whole broad spectrum of people's faces, to make that, it's a great personal achievement. Just become a private pilot. It really is. I feel the same way about scuba diving. It's a great personal achievement. You should go out and do these things, enjoy life, and have fun with it. And if you can make a career out of something like this, it's even better.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
what I'm hearing, kind of hearing a theme is get involved. Right? You're not on the sidelines by any means. You get involved in the coaching. I imagine that started with your own kids, coaching your kids.
Yeah, it did because I went I went out to one of the very first practices for my oldest daughter, and the coach shows up 5 minutes late. This is for softball, and she's like 6 years old. And he pulls the bag out of the back of his plumbing van, and he walks over. And he's got a good heart. He's in the right place. He wants to do this thing. And he says, "Okay, everybody run out there. I'm going to start hitting your balls. No warm-up, no stretching." Huh. And I'm going like, I played sports growing up. I played a variety of sports. I was a gymnast. I ran cross country. I played baseball. My wife was a softball player mostly. Played a little soccer, but she was an All-American at Florida State. Had played on 2 national. So we're a very athletic family. And I said, boy, I know better than this. I know better than this. We got, so I got involved with it. If you understand, how many athletes are in here? How many people are athletes, play sports? Come on, get your hands up. Don't be chicken. Get them up. All right.
Good thing.
All right. Then you understand that biodynamics is actually a circular pattern of your energy of your body that turns into a linear force. Right?
Well, we just went over my head on that one.
Okay, so
I am not an athlete.
When you throw, you start back here and you end up over here.
Okay.
So what happens? You're rotating your body and using the energy.
Start a linear force.
Linear force. Same thing with tennis.
All right.
Right?
Yeah.
Basketball. Right? You name it. Football. Everything. It's a linear force. You're taking a rotational motion and turning it into a linear force. So I'm going like, there's something not right here. So we got involved. My wife and I both got really involved in it. And then I decided if I'm going to coach these sports, I'm going to go to professional coaching schools. And part of that is also the psychological aspects of how do you deal with a 5-year-old.
Sure. Yeah.
Right? So you get down on your knee and you get to their level. Or you sit down on the ground with them and coach with them. Okay? And then when you're getting up to the higher levels, like I had doing college showcase baseball. And this great little side story here, I had this pitcher on the mound, and he's like 6'5". Yeah, 5'7". Now, come on, right? So I walk out. We got runners on first and second. We got 2 outs. The first guy got on an error. The second guy, he walked 4 pitches straight. And it's the last inning, and we're up 1 run. I'm going like, and I walk out there, Casey. And he goes, "You're pulling me out, coach." I said, No, give me the ball. "Oh, you're pulling me out if you're taking the ball. Give me the ball. Now get off the mound." Huh? Get off the mound. Everybody come here. So I pull the whole team over. They're all standing in a circle around the mound. And I looked at Casey and I said, now that we're eye to eye, because he's down off the mound and I'm up on the mound looking right in his eye. "Strike this guy out." Boom, threw him the ball. Everybody's laughing. We walk back. Strikes the guy out. So,
excellent.
So part of it is getting in someone's head. And as you guys move forward and becoming flight instructors, you run down that road and eventually moving into being captains somewhere along the line, whether it's corporate, charter, airline, whatever, you're going to have to look at those psychological aspects of the people that you work with, with your other crew members as well, pilots, flight attendants, whoever. Yeah. So that all comes into play if you're a team.
And it's interesting because, so I've always come more from the business side. They say that business is a team sport. And definitely aviation at the airline level is a team sport, right? You've got captains, first officers, attendants. You've got ground crew, support crew. It's a team sport. You've got to be able to, that's all about working with people.
It is. Yeah, a massive amount of things happening to make one flight happen.
Absolutely. That's a great point. So before we transition into Q&A, you've already given us so many thoughts, but if you had to, implant something here for our young aviators or those that are listening, where would you start? What are those nuggets?
It's funny. I got something.
Yeah?
The gentleman I used to coach baseball with was a fireman down in Miami-Dade and a battalion chief, and eventually a battalion chief at the airport. And we coached baseball together, the college showcase stuff. He retired and became the Director of Emergency Services for Broward County. And he just retired again.
Sounds familiar.
Yeah, so he's on his second retirement, and he actually sent this, and I thought this was really cool because, I saw it this morning. So I said, Bob, I'm gonna steal this, and he said, yeah, go ahead. And he says, this was and is still my mantra. Your number one priority is your people. Enable, support, encourage, communicate, motivate, and reward them when appropriate. Your second priority is your organization. Make commitments, meet those commitments. Don't make commitments that can't be kept. At first discovery, a commitment cannot be met. Inform your client. Develop a recovery plan. Communicate and revise it to your commitment. Strengths are never abused and weaknesses never exploited. Challenges never go uncontested and opportunities never go dormant without a response. Stress is never a justification for rudeness, and conflict is never a justification for divisiveness. Group values are based on individuals and are regarded as self-correcting within the group. Success is shared equally, and failure is accepted as a teacher, not a judge. The reputation of the organization and the individuals within it are almost identical. Your third priority is your personal performance. If things go bad, I did it. If things go well and okay, we did it. If things go good or great, you did it. Mediocrity teacher tells, the good teacher explains, the superior teacher demonstrates, and the great teacher inspires.
A lot in there. There's a lot in there. That comes from a depth of wisdom and experience.
Yeah.
That's great. Much like your own. Thank you so much for being here. I'd love